The beauty of democracy is the constant connect with the people.
The vast hall lay silent, the cameras fixed, and millions of eyes around the world waited in anticipation. It was a scene few had imagined possible. Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, facing Ibrahim Traoré, the young and fiery president of Burkina Faso. To most, it seemed like another diplomatic exchange, leaders discussing policy, trade agreements, or security concerns. But what followed was not the usual rhetoric of politics. It was something more profound, almost sacred, a dialogue about faith, philosophy, and the shared essence of humanity. Modi leaned forward with the calmness of a man who had walked through storms and victories alike. His voice, steady yet gentle, carried authority tempered with humility. "President Traoré," he began, "so much of the world's suffering today comes from misunderstanding. We divide ourselves into Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Jew, or Buddhist, and then we turn those differences into weapons. But if you strip away the labels, religion was never meant to divide. At its core, it is truth. It is light. It is Dharma, the eternal law that sustains the universe." Traoré, often known for his fierce speeches against injustice and oppression, sat unusually quiet. He was not listening as a politician preparing to argue, but as a seeker, absorbing every word. Modi's words were not about geopolitics. They touched something deeper, something spiritual. For once, the soldier president was not resisting but learning. In India, Modi continued, "We have lived for thousands of years surrounded by countless faiths, thousands of languages and endless sects. Empires have risen and fallen. We were invaded, we were colonized, but still something survived. The spirit of Sanatana Dharma, what the world calls Hinduism today. And do you know why it survived? Because it was never about imposing one truth upon all. It recognized that truth wears many forms." The audience following the broadcast across continents felt the power of his words. Modi was not defending a religion. He was offering a philosophy that could transform the way humanity thought about faith itself. He spoke of the Vedas, the ancient scriptures, explaining how they did not demand blind allegiance to a single god, nor did they insist that only one path was correct. Instead, they celebrated diversity and the endless shapes of truth. Modi raised his finger softly and recited, "Ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti." Truth is one, but the wise call it by many names. That is the foundation of Hindu thought, he explained. God may be called Allah, Jesus, Krishna, Yahweh, or simply the universe itself. The names change, but the essence remains the same. At this, President Traoré finally leaned forward. His tone was calm but searching. "Prime Minister, your words touch something deep within me. But tell me, if Hinduism teaches tolerance and unity, why then do we still see division? Why do Hindus themselves quarrel among each other? Why do religions that promise peace still become weapons of hate?" It was a bold question, the kind that Traoré was known for. But Modi did not falter. Instead, he smiled gently. "Ah, my brother, that is not God's weakness. It is man's. Religion in its purest form is always light. But when it becomes power, when men use it as a tool of identity and control, it loses its purity. That is why Hinduism never demanded conversion. You may be a Christian, a Muslim, or even an atheist, and still you can practice yoga, meditate, or read the Bhagavad Gita. Hinduism does not ask you to abandon your path. It only invites you to expand your vision." The room grew utterly still. Even the camera crew seemed hesitant to break the sacredness of what was unfolding. This was not debate, it was revelation. Then Modi turned to the Bhagavad Gita, one of Hinduism's most cherished texts. He told the story of Arjuna, the warrior who stood paralyzed by despair on the battlefield. Arjuna did not wish to fight. He questioned morality, life, and his duty. Krishna, his divine guide, did not command him with force. Instead, he offered wisdom, teaching him that every person must find their own dharma, their righteous path. "That," Modi said softly, "is the beauty of our tradition. God does not order us. God gives wisdom, and it is for us to choose how we live it." Traoré's eyes lit with recognition. He leaned closer. "That sounds like freedom, but also dangerous to those who seek control. No wonder colonial powers tried to erase such thinking. A people who believe they are free in spirit cannot be enslaved." Modi nodded slowly. "Exactly. That is why colonizers did not only conquer lands. They also tried to redefine faith. They painted Hinduism as superstition, Islam as extremism, and African traditions as primitive. Why? Because when you break a people's spiritual confidence, you chain them forever. The young African leader clenched his fist upon the table. His voice rose with conviction. This is why I tell my people that true liberation is not only about removing soldiers or corrupt rulers. It is about freeing the mind. Our people pray, but often without understanding their prayers. They worship, but forget the meaning of worship. They think freedom is only political, but it is spiritual first. The dialogue became electric. What began as one man teaching another had evolved into a partnership of truths, each leader building upon the other. Modi leaned back, his voice almost lyrical. Brother Traoré, let me share something many do not know. Hinduism does not reject other faiths, it embraces them. That is why we can worship in temples yet also honor Jesus, respect Muhammad, or bow before the Buddha. Because if truth is one, then rejecting another's path is like rejecting your own reflection. He paused, then said words that echoed across the globe. Religion was never meant to divide us. It was meant to remind us we are the same. The live chat in the broadcast exploded. Some cheered, some cried, others simply stared in awe. Across India, Africa, and far beyond, people whispered, could this be true? Could all religions really be one? Traoré's reply was deeply personal. I was raised in a land where Christianity and Islam dominate. But before them, our ancestors had their own ways. They spoke to God through the rivers, the trees, and the sky. They found divinity in all creation. The colonizers told us it was paganism, backward, unworthy. But now, listening to you, I realize it was no less divine. Perhaps what you call Sanatana Dharma is what we call African spirituality, the belief that truth exists everywhere. Modi's face brightened, his hand rising as if in blessing. Yes, that is exactly what I mean. Hinduism sees God not only in temples or scriptures. We see God in rivers, in animals, in the sun, in the stars, in every human being. That is why we say namaste. Do you know what it means? It means the divine in me bows to the divine in you. The hall burst into applause. It felt less like a political broadcast and more like a shared sermon for the world. And then Modi spoke words that history would not forget. If the world understood this one truth, that we are many rivers flowing into the same ocean, there would be no wars in the name of faith, no hatred in the name of God. There would only be one family, one humanity, united under many names but bound to the same truth. Traoré pressed his hand to his chest and whispered with solemn conviction, that is the world I want for my people. That is the world I will fight for. The cameras dimmed briefly, but everyone knew the conversation had only just begun. When the broadcast resumed after a short pause, the atmosphere inside the room felt charged, almost sacred. What had started as a quiet dialogue between two leaders now pulsed with the rhythm of a global awakening. Both Narendra Modi and Ibrahim Traoré sat still for a few moments, letting the depth of their words sink into the hearts of millions watching around the world. Traoré leaned forward, his gaze steady yet thoughtful. Prime Minister Modi, he said slowly, what you have shared about Hinduism has touched me deeply. But I must ask, if Hinduism truly teaches tolerance, harmony, and unity, why then does the world not hear this message more clearly? Why is it drowned out by the noise of conflict and the agendas of global powers? It was a question that echoed in the minds of millions watching the dialogue. Modi exhaled softly, his expression grave. Because truth without force rarely makes headlines. The world thrives on conflict, not harmony. They spread stories of wars between religions, not stories of unity. When a Hindu and a Muslim clash, it is news. But when they embrace as brothers, it goes unnoticed. Division is profitable. Unity sadly is not. Traoré nodded, his eyes narrowing with recognition. That is the same in Africa. They magnify our conflicts but ignore the times when Christians and Muslims share meals, when neighbors pray together, when peace is stronger than violence. They want the world to see us as chaos. Maybe this is why your words resonate with me. Because Hinduism, as you explain it, is like Africa, misrepresented, misunderstood, but full of truth. Modi smiled warmly. Exactly, my brother. You understand. Hinduism has survived for thousands of years, not through force, but through resilience. And in your people, I see the same resilience. Colonizers may have stolen your resources, but they could never kill your spirit. That spirit is divine. Traoré's face grew intense as he spoke, his voice rising with passion. My people are awakening, Prime Minister. For centuries, we were told our traditions were inferior. We were told our gods were false. We were told we had to choose between Christianity or Islam if we wanted to be civilized. But what I have come to understand is this: God was already with us long before the missionaries or imams came. He was in the rivers, in the baobab trees, in the ancestors who prayed for rain. As you say, truth takes many forms. Why then should we be ashamed of our own form? The hall erupted in applause. Across Africa, countless viewers felt pride rising within them. It was perhaps the first time they had seen their leaders speak so boldly about spirituality on the world stage. Modi's eyes glowed with approval. President Traoré, your words are profound. Hinduism teaches that God does not reside only in temples or scriptures. God is in all creation. That is why when I see African traditions, your dances, your rituals, your music, I see prayer in them too. The world calls it primitive only because they do not understand. But I tell you, it is another language of worship. Traoré smiled faintly. Then perhaps we are not so different after all. Perhaps Hinduism and African spirituality are like two brothers, separated by oceans but born of the same truth. Yes, Modi replied poetically. Two rivers flowing into the same ocean, and that ocean is humanity. At that point, a journalist dared to interject. Prime Minister Modi, President Traoré, if all that you say is true, then why do religions still clash? Why do Hindus and Muslims fight in India? Why do Christians and Muslims battle in Africa? If faiths are truly one, why does the human heart still choose division? The question pierced the silence. Modi and Traoré exchanged glances before Modi answered. Because religion itself is not the problem, ego is. It is not God who divides us, but men who seek power in his name. When someone declares, "My path is the only path," he does not speak for God, he speaks for himself. And yet people follow because they are taught to fear. But true religion does not create fear. True religion sets us free. Traoré leaned in, his tone fiery. Yes, this is what I tell my people. Fear is the greatest chain. When they say, fear God or be punished, they make us slaves. But God is not a tyrant. God is freedom. God is justice. God is truth. And if your religion makes you hate your neighbor, then it is not from God. The audience was stunned. Some clapped, others sat in silent reflection. It was rare to hear leaders speak with such honesty, unfiltered by diplomacy. Modi then turned the conversation inward. Do you know, President Traoré, why I practice yoga and meditation each morning? It is not because I am Hindu. It is because I am human. Yoga does not belong to Hindus. It belongs to humanity. Meditation is not a ritual of religion. It is a way of connecting with the soul. These practices remind me that before I am a leader or politician, I am simply a man searching for truth. Traoré's expression softened, a smile touching his face. That is powerful. Prime Minister, in my country I also pray, but often not with words. Sometimes I walk into the forest, sit among the trees and listen to the wind. In that silence, I hear the voice of God more clearly than in any sermon. Perhaps that too is yoga, though we never called it that. Modi laughed warmly. Yes, my brother, that too is yoga. For yoga means union. Union with oneself, with the universe, with the divine. Call it African spirituality, call it yoga, call it meditation. It is the same essence. By now, both leaders had gone far beyond the boundaries of politics. They were no longer speaking as Hindu and African, but as two human beings peeling back the layers of existence. Modi raised his hand, his voice intense. Let me tell you something about Hinduism that many find surprising. We do not believe in conversion. We believe in coexistence. If you are Christian, be a good Christian. If you are Muslim, be a good Muslim. If you are rooted in your African traditions, honor your ancestors. That is enough. God does not demand a label. He asks for sincerity. Traoré's voice thundered in response. Then why does the world not teach this? Why are we told we must abandon one faith for another to be saved? Why are my people told that unless they follow one path, they are condemned? The Prime Minister's answer was quiet but unwavering. Because if they told you the truth, they would lose their control. A free mind cannot be colonized. A free soul cannot be bought. That is why they distort religion. But this conversation, my brother, this is dangerous to them. Because if people begin to understand, they will no longer be ruled by fear. Gasps filled the hall. It was as though both men had revealed a forbidden truth. Traoré then looked straight into the camera, his eyes blazing with conviction. To every African listening, to every believer watching, hear me clearly. God does not belong to one people. one book, or one temple. God belongs to all. Whether you call him Allah, Krishna, Yahweh, or the spirit of the ancestors, you are speaking to the same creator. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. This is how we shall be free. Thunderous applause shook the room. Online hashtags surged across platforms. One God, Many Paths and Traoré Modi dialogue. Millions felt as though they were witnessing a moment destined for history books. As the dialogue reached its closing moments, Modi pressed his hand to his heart. Brother Traoré, the journey of humanity is not to find the one true religion. It is to discover the truth within every religion. Hinduism does not ask you to become Hindu. It asks you to honor the divinity already living within you. That is the gift I wish for the world. Traoré rose to his feet, his voice steady and strong. And my gift is this, that Africans too will reclaim their spiritual dignity. We will no longer see ourselves as less. We will no longer allow others to tell us who God is. We will know for ourselves. And when Africa rises spiritually free, the world will see the light we carry. The two men clasped hands firmly. It was more than a handshake. It was the sealing of a covenant, a promise that their words would outlast the moment. As the broadcast ended, commentators struggled to describe what they had witnessed. Was it diplomacy? Was it philosophy? Or was it a glimpse of humanity's future, where faith was not a battlefield, but a bridge? Whatever it was, one thing was certain. The words spoken that day between Narendra Modi and Ibrahim Traoré would echo for generations, reshaping how the world understood religion, identity, and unity.